Alright, today it's time to say goodbye to the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450. I totally forgot that I have never made a test video in English because I got this bike from Royal Enfield for 7 months now. In 2 days she's going back to Royal Enfield and I thought, well, if there's no test video, I'm gonna make it now. So welcome to the original. So as I mentioned, I made a test video back at the global launch. I think it was in 2024 in Barcelona, Spain. And this bike really convinced me from the start. Royal Enfield was convinced from my test video. They sent me this bike for 7 months now. And it was basically my test bike and also the bike of my wife. And what was in my mind, so the girl from Royal Enfield said, just have fun with the bike. But as I'm an engineer, I was like, yeah, nah, I'm gonna test it. I'm trying to destroy it basically without really destroying it. Because they told me, and we're gonna talk about that the frame is very rigid, it's made for three people. And if someone tells me this frame is made for three people to sit on, yeah, well, we're gonna sit on this with three people. And I also went off-roading with her, rode through the Alps, took her to the racetrack, carved curvy roads, we jumped around, we rode, as I said, triple up, and with a slightly modified version, but the original engine, I've raced a 8-mile race at the legendary event called Glamsack in Germany. So I really wanted to present to my viewers in Germany what I've done to this bike, and I really wanted to show all the flaws. But the video will be over right now, so there are really not that much flaws. But as we're on the English version right now, we're gonna jump into the engine. Oh, and before I forgot, I have zero contracts for anything you see in this channel for my English channel. All the contracts I have just for the German channel. So in the English channel, I can say whatever the fuck I want. The Guerrilla has a displacement of 452 cubic centimeters with a bore to stroke ratio of 82 millimeters bore to 81.5 millimeters stroke, and it generates 40 horsepower at 8,000 revolutions with 40 newton meters of torque at 5,000 revolution, and that's all produced out of a single cylinder. Of course, like everyone else, I thought 40 horsepower is too little, and sometimes it is. If you want to pull a power wheelie or get a little wild on straightish roads within the traffic laws, then she falls a bit short. But the video, the most pointless comparison on YouTube, showed that even when things get twisty, you can absolutely keep up with her. Sure, the throttle will be open 90% of the time, but it works. It's not a highway killer by any means. At 150 kilometers per hour or 93 miles per hour, she runs out of breath. And also going 120 kilometers per hour for a longer period of time could be quite annoying. But fair enough, that's not what she was built for. I think she's built as a commuter, weekend trips to the mountains, or just as a general second bike, or even as a bike to start with. Of course, we got a ride-by-wire system, which is very forgiving and easy to control. On the other hand, not as sharp as on a proper sport bikes like my Streetfighter V2, but well, you can buy 3.5 Guerrillas for one Ducati Streetfighter. And the best thing about this engine is, so Royal Enfield claims it has 40 horsepower, 40 newton meters, and it really delivers. So this engine is called the Sherpa engine, which is also in the Himalayan. And I compared this to a Triumph Speed 400, and I got the feeling like Triumph's bike in comparison was made to just reach the 40 horsepower somehow. And here it's like the torque curve is very flat, it's very linear in some sense, so is the power curve. And yeah, it's not trying to fool you on the data sheet. And one thing that surprised me, that overheaded bucket tappets are DLC or diamond-like carbon coated, which is just astonishing and a proof of a modern, well thought about engine. So overall, it's a very solid and refined engineered engine. It's not over-engineered by any means, so it's not a small powerhouse like a supermoto where you can go wheeling very easy. You can wheel here, of course, but it takes the clutch. And it's not made for this maximum power output. I think they could get more power out of this, but I think that Royal Enfield thought about like, well, we just deliver an engine which is very constant, very smooth, very forgiving, very easy to ride. Yeah. The only thing I would complain about is like the throttle, so it's not as responsive as it could be. I think it's due to the fact that these bikes are mostly sold, like 80% of them are sold in India, and I could imagine that the roads over there are not the best roads in the world, so a very responsive throttle would be a downside. But here in Germany, roads are generally okay, so it could be a little bit more direct. But overall, it's 40 horsepower, so you just twist the throttle and open it completely, and you're fine. The only real downside on this engine are the short service intervals, and once again, that's pretty common for bikes which are sold mostly in India and greater parts of Asia, because it's a little bit more dirty over there. So you have to clean up the engine a little bit more often. For example, the air filters. That's why the service intervals are a little bit shorter, and because they are afraid that that something could happen, they just bring their service intervals over to the US and Europe. But the good side on this is that Royal Enfield service is not comparable to Harley or Ducati. It's actually quite cheap, and therefore I'm pretty fine with it. Well, another small downside is a 450 one-cylinder could be a little rumbly motorcycle, but yeah, it's in Euro 5 spec motorcycle, so it's not that loud. Also, I fitted an aftermarket exhaust on it. It's still not too loud, but as you viewers are maybe from the UK or US, yeah, I'm jealous. I mean, you can do a lot to make this thing sound actually good. And the bike I raced at this Glamsack event was pretty loud, so happy you for not living in the European Union. But the suspension of the Royal Enfield is what surprised me the most. With her 185 kilos, a wheelbase of 1440 millimeters, a steering head angle of 56 degrees, and a 160/60 rear tire, she's incredibly easy to handle. From my perspective, she'd be perfect as a riding school bike, or as a second bike, a city bike, or even for light off-road. She's super capable and never overwhelming. Up front, 150 millimeter telescopic fork, and the rear 145 millimeters. That's really a good compromise between sporty and touring. And above all, it's not tuned softly. I mean, we rode 3 up with it, about 300 kilos of combined weight without even adjusting the preload. And this thing really worked. And one more thing about these tires from Seat, developed in a cooperation with Pirelli. I never had any problems, never lacked confidence. They just always worked, and no matter what nonsense we tried with them. So the feeling you get from the bike and the tires is always precise in the most matters. It's forgiving, it's ultra easy to handle, very nimble, and boy, I can even lift that thing with one arm. And we don't even need to talk about Royal Enfield frames. They're made like a gun and tough as nails. And even the single 300mm disc brake up front provides more than enough stopping power. And in the Swiss Alps, going downhill, she turned out to be a real BMW GS killer. Well, uphill not so much, but downhill you don't miss the horsepower. Instead, her agility really shines. And with a height of 1 meter and 81 centimeters, it even fits me with the aftermarket flat track seat. It's comfortable, and overall, for a price here in Germany for about 5,000 euros, that's crazy what you get here. Normally, I would cut an extra chapter for the gearbox, but in all honesty, that's not really necessary. It just works. The clutch is easy to manipulate. The gear levers travel distance is not too sporty and not too much touring. It just works, and the lengths of each gear are perfectly matched to the engine. And with that, we leave the department of the suspension. On the electronic side, there's nothing really wild. I mean, the bike is completely equipped with LED tech. It has to have ABS for the German or European market, and the ABS kind of mimics a traction control, which could be quite annoying. And you also get a USB port for charging, but basically that's it. If there wasn't the dashboard is kind of special, and though it's also one of the biggest annoying downsides. So when you ride this bike in summer and the sun is somewhat beside you, you sometimes can't see shit. But yeah, sometimes it's really hard to read. On the other hand, combined with the Royal Enfield app, this dashboard can be used for Google Maps. I think also for this Apple thing, I don't know who uses Apple in the US. I guess it's very common in the US, it's not so much in Europe. But Google Maps works pretty well on these small dashboard, which is awesome. You get basically the most information you need. So you have your trip distances, your general kilometers or mileage, and you got the whatever you got left in the fuel tank. You also got different riding modes, but in all honesty, 40 horsepower is not that difficult to control. So just put it in the sporty one. I did it once and I never touched this button again wherever I was. So I mean, yeah, you should be able to ride 40 horsepower. Yeah, but that's basically it. I could see a cruise control on this bike. I traveled some 100 kilometers on the Autobahn to get to the Alps, but a cruise control would have been quite handy because going like 90 miles per hour on this bike is pretty annoying if you do this for like 2 hours. So a cruise control would be very handy, but yeah, I don't expect it from a bike for 5,000 euros. Yeah, and that's basically it. So let's jump to the department of touring. So, touring, short version is possible. Yes, it's not an Africa Twin though. So, going on the Autobahn, as I said, 120 kilometers per hour for a longer period of time is not the greatest fun, but it worked. Fuel consumption over the last 7 months was 3.5 liters per 100 kilometers or 78 miles per gallon, leading to a range of roughly 260 kilometers or 160 miles. Unfortunately, the fuel tank is not very big with 11 liters. So you have to go to the gas station sometimes, but hey, that's fine. And she even has, as I mentioned, the remaining range display. Fitting luggage to the bike was also pretty decent. It looked a bit wild, but enough space to go on a 1 week trip. The headlight is also pretty capable if you run out of daylight. And with that, we're gonna jump to the conclusion. Conclusion to the Royal Enfield Guerrilla. Well, did I have any problem with the bike? Nope, nothing. So I really kind of tortured her, but it's a lovely torture. So I really love this bike. I really, yeah, I'm really happy to see her. I don't like the colors because, as you may know, the German flag is black, gold, and red. And although I'm a patriot, that's kind of too much for me. But there is this white color, the Brava blue, which is really awesome. But Royal Enfield has a strange philosophy of colors, so you don't get every color in every country, which is bloody annoying somehow. But anyway, so no problems with this bike. So battery was fine, like everything was fine. Everything worked all the time. So you just turn the key and yeah, drive. That's it. So no issues. When I was testing the Ducati Streetfighter V2, I had to leave this bike with Ducati. I was not allowed to enter with this bike into the Ducati restricted area, so the bike was standing on the outside for 1 week in the pouring rain. There's no rust. There's just nothing rattling, nothing falling off, nothing ever not working. I mean, 7 months is not a super wild long term experience, but for a new bike, it at least should show if it has these we call it starting diseases. Sometimes if a new bike comes to the market and you get these small faults and errors, for example for the BMW GS, but nothing here. And I think I mentioned like this was quite easy to fit the aftermarket accessories. They're all from Royal Enfield. For example, the mirrors and the seat. There was no instruction manual, but like I think everyone is capable of installing 5 bolts, so that was also quite easy, and they fit pretty well. I'm just astonished by this bike. I really like the bike. I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of the Bear 650 because I rode this bike in California in the desert, which is, if you come from Germany, is like the highest you can get as a motorcycle tester. So that's why I love the Bear even more, I guess. But I also really like the Guerrilla for how nimble and easy you can ride it. So there's no stress involved with this bike. So even if you go off-road and you drop it, you just lift it with one arm. It's just awesome, and it even looks good. And so overall, I'm really convinced. Well, I even have no contract for my German channel, actually. I have no contract to own this motorcycle. They just brought it here and was like, have fun. So I can say whatever I want to say. I mean, if someone would try to restrict my opinion, I would just say, no, I don't want this bike, so why should I? But especially on this English channel, where I can show you also product tests, where I have a contract from a German channel, I can be just brutally honest. Which is awesome. So if you're interested in the Royal Enfield, I don't know how the situation is in the UK or even in the US with the dealerships, but if you have the chance to try it and ride it, just go for it. Yeah, and also this video was not scripted. It's just like wild thoughts jumping out of my mind because they called me and said we're gonna get this bike in 2 days and it's bloody cold here, and yeah. So this is not scripted. It's not as detailed as it could be. I'm very sorry about this. I hope you still consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed the video anyway, and see you on the next one.